Calvin and Hobbes, underrated cartoon. I think that's going to be the next novel I do this year. Forget Catcher in the Rye. We're just going to do Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, maybe we'll do that one. Toulmin's model of argument. There's a British philosopher, thinker, not writing this part down, Stephen Toulmin is the person who came up with this thought, this setup. His background is in science, not so much like argument, debate, not even like really philosophy, although he's considered a philosopher. But his background is science, and his setup here for the Toulmin model is very scientific, really in nature, and I think from that scientific point of view, it kind of works. When you get in an argument, like, anyone recall last argument they had with somebody, not counting like a spar debate about long distance relationships, but not, necessarily heated contested, but argument over like whose fantasy football team was better or where we should go out to eat on Saturday. Anyone recall our last argument? No?
Yeah.
Like
2 weeks ago, my friends and I were debating whether we could search the ocean or not.
What do you mean search the ocean?
Like go down deep and find like Amelia Earhart's like plane in like a ravine or something. We were debating if that was
Did you watch the History Channel thing about like where the person claims to have found her in a photograph or something?
I don't know.
I didn't see it, but okay. So you were debating. What did you say? Yes, we can, or no, we can't?
I said because of past dives where it was like they weren't really searching down at like the depth of like 30,000 meters or something, but they were able to make it there. So I said if they could make it there, then in a few years we'll have the technology to be able to search down there. I said yes, it's possible.
Did you come up with your argument first, like your stance, and then have support for it, or did you build support and then you went, because of this, this, and this, I think we actually will be able to, if you remember?
I would go the latter because we were like watching a video on like the ocean and how deep things are, and then they were talking about how far down we've been able to go. So after that, we kind of started debating.
All right. So based on what you were seeing and watching, that's how the argument kind of came about. Do you remember your argument?
My dad and I really watch on TV, and we're because we usually, my parents were divorced, so usually like we alternate, but since it was a long weekend, I spent an extra night with my mom, and I came back on a different day, but I wanted it to be my night because Monday nights are usually my night, but it was like my first night back, which is usually Sunday. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was arguing that Mondays are my TV nights, and he said, no, we're supposed to alternate, and we got it on the day, and I want to watch TV.
What do you want to watch?
Montreal.
What do you want to watch?
I don't know, something. I usually just don't pay attention when I'm supposed to. So I don't know.
What'd you watch?
Montreal.
So you won.
Yeah.
By stealing the remote.
I'm like Daddy's princess, so yeah.
Princesses corrupt the youth of America, Matt. See, like right there.
I swear to God, if I would have had that one.
Do you have like a Daddy's Princess T-shirt that you got when you were like 5?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah, Addie got some of those. I ripped them in half and threw them away. All right, so gonna give you two setups here. Today it's going to be a simple model. Tomorrow we'll get a little bit more into advanced. You don't have to like draw the boxes necessarily, but you do want to kind of see the relationship that takes place. The way that Toulmin sets this up, in theory, and it sounds like Alexis's argument was kind of going in this way. Noel's argument, I think, was kind of going more of the other way of, you made your claim right away, I want to watch TV tonight because it's my night to watch TV. Then it kind of went backwards where the whole reasoning thing started to take place. Toulmin states that, and these names are interchangeable, data, evidence, grounds. We usually, we use all three of them. I'm not going to say we always use data, grounds, or evidence or anything like that. I guess probably verbally we say evidence. He would argue that you collect evidence, observations, you're picking up data, bits of information. You take those bits of information, you start to put some reasoning as to recognize what's the logic among those bits of information, and that leads you to creating a claim. So it's very much, that scientific hypothesis kind of idea where you observe, you collect, you reason, boom, you make a claim. How do most of us probably end up coming up with our arguments? wouldn't say we go in that order, but what do we usually do? You're wrong. Opposite, and then you go backwards. You're right with your answer. But we would come up with our claim first. This is what I think. Why do you think that? Well, because of this, and then you come up with your reason and your warrant. In theory, the issue with that, if you already have come up with your claim, then your claim is kind of biased in nature. Now, what did we just do? We simply selected topics. Long distance relationships are doomed to fail. Jordan picked the topic. Matt picked the side. What were you already picking? Your claim. And then you were kind of working backwards. So sometimes the structure of the argument doesn't necessarily allow for that forward progression. But he would state that you should collect data, then you kind of put those things together, and ultimately you end up coming with your claim. So, for example, from Too Much Pressure, what was Colleen Wenke's main claim, the main argument that she was coming up with within her article? It wasn't that people cheat or that too many people cheat, but what was her issue when it came?
Like schools were allowing them to cheat easily.
Because they focus on
Like the grades and study work.
grades, test scores, as opposed to actually passing on knowledge and things like that. So her argument would be schools place too much emphasis on the grade, and then when it came to data and evidence, what's some of that data and evidence? Well, they allow cheating to kind of fester, continue, manifest itself, and things like that. So a claim, here's where we get a little definition. I'll give you a couple different claims to it. Write down examples if it helps you, but you're not responsible for writing it word for word. But claim is essentially the argument that you are trying to make. It's the proposition, the assertion that you want the other side to accept. It's my night for TV, Dad. I don't care if it's Monday night and normally it's Sunday. I should be allowed to watch TV today because it's my first time back, or first night back. Now, did you like alternate them the rest of the week too? Or did you go back to the
We're
old?
going, it was just yesterday, so tonight is going to be this night.
But normally it's your night.
Normally, yeah, Tuesdays.
So what do you normally watch on Tuesdays?
Riverdale again, or the One Tree Hill again.
Does your dad even know what's on TV on Tuesday nights, or is he just
Oh, we usually watch
Netflix
Netflix and
stream, so
Amazon.
doesn't matter.
I like movies too.
to watch Apocalypse Now? It's on Amazon Prime.
That sounds like something you would like. I would watch like the Alien movie or something.
Well, Apocalypse Now is Heart of Darkness.
Oh, is it really?
Mm-hmm. Except it's in Vietnam. So, like, when people write their essays about Vietnam, that's usually not a good sign, but whatever. So, claim is that overall argument person's trying to make, the what is your point thing. So, a simple example, you should buy your brother a birthday present, Matt, because Kevin bought one for you. No, he didn't. That's
I think that's true.
probably that you should buy him one or that he bought you one. Yeah. So, you will not buy your brother a birthday present because he did not buy one.
I don't think I should.
Well, that's a value judgment kind of claim because of should. We'll get into that stuff here. Hey, what do you know? So when it comes to your claims, there's three basic types that show up. There's fact, judgment value, and policy being the third one. Fact can be, I guess it depends what you're debating. In some cases, fact can be the most difficult one to prove because you have to prove it. If you're going that it is a fact-based claim, you have to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that this is 100% true. So, depending on how it gets worded, Alexis's could be a fact-based claim that we will be able to, do all the deep sea exploring and stuff like that. The problem is it's not really going to become fact-based until we know if it can happen or not. Value judgment, this is more opinions, attitudes. Matt, you want to guess what the magic word is for a value-based claim? Should. We should do this. You should allow me to watch TV tonight or pick what it is that we watch. Mr. Kane, you should give me an extension for the homework. So if you see the word should showing up, you know that it's a value judgment type thing that would be occurring. Policy, this is more of like a legislative type thing. Claims advocating that specific courses of actions, now it's tricky here because it says the word should be undertaken, will go into effect. When we do student Congress bills later on, you'll do stuff like Beginning with the 2018-2019 school year, all students will report to school at 8:15. Because you have stated a specific time that it would begin and you're proposing a bill, this is legislative, this is policy. So if it's law that like Senate, House of Representatives, would be looking to pass, it's gonna be policy. If the school board is looking to change something that would happen within the school, it's gonna be policy. If Slippery Rock is gonna change its admissions policies, that's gonna be a policy debate. So if you're looking to kind of enact a law or take something away, policy. If you're discussing value, an opinion, you should take this class, you should watch this movie, I think you'll like it. That's going to be more of a judgment value. If you're trying to prove that something did happen or will occur, that's going to be a fact-based one. Who was your number one pick? What was your picking order? Good, fourth. Were you down like, were you between any two people or? But I mean, like, did you know what your pick was going to be once you saw that he was available? Okay, so Max decided this is the best player to take. It would be a fact-based judgment in his. What number pick did you have?
I was in history.
Oh, okay. So you're bragging to him and he's not even in your league?
Well, he picked Odell, and Odell's gonna be out in one, so.
Oh man, I picked Elliott. He's out 6 weeks.
Elena, pretend for like 5 seconds that you care.
Not anymore.
Yeah, don't even pretend that long.
He can play.
Grounds are going to refer to proof or evidence that that the arguer is offering. So it essentially answers those kind of questions as what is your proof, how do you know? You're certainly not going to be including all of these things with most arguments, but grounds can consist of a lot of different things. Could be statistics, could be quotations, which would be like a testimonial, could be reports, studies. There might be physical evidence that could be occurring, or it could also be like a logic reasoning. So this is the overall evidence that you would be presenting as to how, why, things like that. I should be allowed to pick TV tonight. First night over, you're basically going on past precedent, so it's not a statistic or finding or physical evidence, but Noel had reasoning when it's first night over for me. I get to pick TV. It's a different day as usual than normal, but it's first time. Yours was probably going to be more reports, findings, that kind of stuff when it came to deep sea exploration and things like that. Any senior or junior make that college decision where you know it, why? What's that do to your tuition? That's a big time statistic. Cost down. You still have to pay for like books and room and board and all that kind of stuff. Who should pay for college? You or your parents? That's a cop out answer. That's important to Matt didn't have much reasoning for his debate that we saw earlier.
I don't know.
He had two. He was hoping on that forms of logical reasoning, but it didn't quite work. What was the one, Maria, that he didn't say?
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. That's right. Remember that one next time you get in an argument. Doesn't make sense. So grounds can consist of a lot of different things here, depending on probably what type of argument or claim you would be making. If you're doing something that's fact-based, you're probably going to go more in that statistic, quotation, report, finding, maybe even a physical evidence. If you're doing a should argument, so you have judgment value, probably going to be a little bit more of reasoning taking place. When it comes to policy, it tends to kind of be a mix of all of those things. So if you were to make the statement, it looks like rain, the barometer is falling, because the barometric pressure is going below 30, you think that precipitation is bound to occur with higher dew points and all that kind of stuff. You have physical evidence to back up that it looks like it is going to rain. It could even be something as simple as it looks like it's going to rain. There's a big dark cloud over there, or a blind, that would be physical evidence that you're looking at, plus logical reasoning in the sense dark clouds tend to have precipitation. The other Applebee's restaurants I've been in had clean restrooms, so I bet this one has clean restrooms too. This is based more on personal experience, again, kind of like that logical reasoning that's taking place. So you have your statement, basically the claim that you have, and then usually some kind of evidence to follow it up, although this one flips it since it mentions the other Applebee's have had clean restrooms. Grounds then can be based on essentially three different things. Evidence and analysis and reasoning we already kind of hit on. The other one would be source credibility. Now, it's not that these areas are mutually exclusive of one another. There certainly can be overlap with them. But if you have evidence, there's some kind of statistic, report, physical proof, something along those lines. It looks like it's going to rain, the barometric pressure is falling, you have physical proof in your side for it. Analysis, reason, this is going to be more of logic. It doesn't make sense. We're hoping that Matt would kind of expound upon that one a little bit. Source credibility also can occur where you have testimonies, could be endorsers that would be taking place. If it's a person that you trust, a friend, then they could have some source credibility by establishing their ethos, so to speak, with it. You should go to Pitt. Why? Well, my brother goes to Pitt. It's been a good experience for him. Plus, you could save a lot of money by going there. You kind of melded two things together with evidence in the sense that it's going to be cheaper for you. Analysis and reasoning. Also, it's going to be cheaper. Source credibility. My brother goes there. It's been a good education for him. So those things can all kind of mix together. More often than not, you'll probably be looking at more of evidence and the analysis and reasoning aspects within your argument. Some things you could have source credibility certainly kind of coming in, though. Scheduling time, you focus on source credibility. Friends, classes that they've taken, things that they've heard about, things that you would like from them, or asking teachers that you trust. That's going to be a lot of source credibility occurring. Warrant reasoning. This is the one where people sometimes struggle because you don't always explain it within your arguments. When we were going over Aristotle's structure of an argument, kind of had a little bit of an essay approach to it, argument being like the thesis statement and things like that. The warrant is kind of like your body paragraphs. This is where you explain the reasoning. The problem that happens with warrants is a lot of times they go unstated, they're implied, they're implicit, where you kind of assume that the listener or the reader is going to be able to follow your understanding. So the warrant is that inferential leap that connects your evidence, grounds, data that you have with the claim. How does the fact that today is Monday night match up with I should be able to watch TV? If you simply, because originally your dad said, but it's Monday. So I should watch TV. But Dad, it's my first time over for the week, is your evidence. The warrant is generally when I'm allowed to come, when I come over for the first time, even though it's normally Sundays, I pick. Since it's my first night over, even though it's Monday, I should still be allowed to pick. That's where you take that data, evidence, and make it kind of more understandable for the reader or for the listener to understand. Sometimes if your arguments seem pretty basic or normal to you, you feel that you don't have the need to explain that warrant, and that's when you can kind of start to lose things. If Matt's argument simply was long-distance relationships are doomed to fail, they don't make sense, he's relying on you to understand why they don't make sense. What he has to do is explain why they don't make sense. Hopefully taking more than the 20 seconds that he took the first time. It was. I let it run just like a couple seconds long to see if there was more. There wasn't. You came back strong with your rebuttal though. I mean, you used a good like 27 seconds for that one.
Out of 30.
Yeah. Jordan said more in her first argument than you said like combined. So next time we do spar debates and Dinesh goes, I want to go against Matt, his evidence is going to be first round, he you watch Matt, the warrant, he doesn't state it, but he's expecting that everyone understands why it is he wants to go against Matt, since he took a grand total of about 57 seconds to go over everything. Oh, I'm sorry, 47. Unless it's about John Winthrop, then you just don't have prayer. Okay. Warrants also can be based on that ethos, the logos, the pathos, and we'll go over some examples of this as well as shared values. And this kind of becomes a big one when we get to the whole idea of, kind of explaining warrants and whatnot. You folks didn't have the assault weapon SPAR debate. I think it was 6th period that had it, where all forms of assault weapons should be banned. And so one of the arguments that the negative side said was Second Amendment rights, and they just stated that. Now, why were they making reference to Second Amendment rights? It's the right to bear arms. It is also part of the Bill of Rights, Constitution. So they were going with that shared value that the Constitution, Bill of Rights is a big deal. It's something that basically all American citizens would be in agreement with. So they were kind of using a shared value as part of their warrant. Now, the other side kind of did a little bit of a rebuttal with their logos going, I'm not against Second Amendment rights. I'm not saying that people cannot bear arms. I'm not saying that people cannot hunt or possess a handgun, but they cannot have semi-automatic or full automatic, bless you, weapons at their disposal at any time. So initially it started off with like a shared value connection warrant linking those together, and then the other person kind of came back with a little bit of a logos example. And then also a lot of emotional appeals were made with that argument as well, mentioning episodes that have occurred where you have, children victims and things like that. Just like when it comes with the evidence that we were kind of stating before with your data evidence claim, these aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. You can have multiple ones working. But we'll show you some examples of how they would work here. Muffin is running a temperature. Maggie, do you have a kitten, cat named Muffin? That's good. Let's pretend Muffin has a temperature. I'll bet she has an infection. The warrant is sign reasoning of that temperature. A fever is a reliable sign of an infection. That's not something that a person would necessarily say. If you think you need to stay home from school, Mom, I have a temperature of 101, your warrant is my temperature is high, I could get other people sick, I'm not going to be able to pay attention much anyway in class because I'm going to be tired and groggy. You're not saying all of those things, but it's implied based on that sign, based on that evidence of you having a temperature of a certain number. So it's a reliable sign infection that could be taking place. When it comes to dogs, you could go, that dog is probably friendly. It is a golden retriever. Your argument, your claim is the dog is probably friendly. Your evidence is a golden retriever. You haven't stated anything so far as the warrant, but it's a generalization that most or all golden retrievers tend to be friendly. So you're relying on your audience to make that connection. This becomes a problem, though, when you are dealing with arguments that are a little bit more complex, that people won't necessarily pick up on all those connections that link those things together. So for Wanky to go, schools need to focus more on knowledge, evidence, people cheat too much, she has to kind of explain what that connection would be. Tomorrow we're going to look over these in more detail, but I want to kind of explain right now. This is the way that your quiz is going to be set up. I'm going to give you 3 statements. They're going to be grouped together. You're going to have to identify which one is the data, which one is the warrant, which one is the claim. You're just going to write like a D, C, W next to each one. So data, claim, warrant, you'll identify which is which. We'll start with this tomorrow, just do a couple little practice things before we go into a little bit more detail about the rest of the Toulmin model.